Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. Welcome to my YouTube video. I actually recorded this video once before today and it didn't work. It suddenly decided to go in slow-mo. So here I am recording it for the second time. So welcome to my YouTube channel. For those that don't know me, my name is Tracy Evans. I'd also like to say thank you to my new subscribers. It's lovely to have you on board. Now, a few of the new ladies and gentlemen have asked me to show my group. So what I've got is my iPad and I've gone into the app. And if you go to Tracy Evans, you've got here Tracy Evans, Craft Addicts, Create, Share and Inspire. This is my group where we share all our artwork with my designs and AALL&Create stencils, etc. So if you'd like to join us, feel free to ask to join the group and we'll add you as soon as possible. So I was asked to show that. So I just thought I'd show that initially, just so that we've sorted that. Right. Let me just make sure that we've got that all set up. Yes, we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this card. Now, as I say, I actually recorded it once, but it didn't work. So I'm actually recording it for the second time. So there you go, second time lucky maybe. So I hope you like the card. And what we've got is I've got a piece of Bristol Smooth card. Now you can use any watercolour card. You can use Pink Frog card. You can use the back of Centura Pearl card. Any card that is smooth and will take water and react with water. That is absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Scotch removable tape just to mask off some areas. So what I'm going to do is, now there's nothing precise about this. It's just place it down wherever you deem fit. So I'm creating some masked off areas so that I've got some stripes of open areas here. And you can have them smaller, wider or narrower, makes no difference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my low-tack tape and I'm just going to add a couple of pieces, she says, trying to with a hand, a couple of pieces just at the top of my project. So, you know, I have to make sure I've got that end turned over or else it drives me mad if I don't get it right. So just, let's leave a bigger gap than that. So what we've got is we've got an open area here, an open area here, here and here. Okay, you need some scrap paper. And lucky me, I've got one piece only. Oh, wow. Just grab a few more pieces. I think I can afford more pieces than one piece of copier paper. Just so that you can mask off certain areas if you get into a mess. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mask off that area first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ink pads, the ink pads that I want to use. So we've got Shady Lilac, Wilted Violet and Broken China. And I'm going to grab a blending tool for each of those colours. So let me just grab some scrap paper just so that we can put those down. So I've got blending tools for each of those colours. And what we're going to do is we're going to blend each of those colours into our open areas. So let's move the colours out of the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Shaded Lilac. And we're going to add some Shaded Lilac onto our ink blending tool. Now, I've still got plenty of ink on this ink blending tool anyway, because I always ink mine up properly. So all I'd say is just make sure that you ink your tool up properly, that it's got plenty of ink. I've got a nice cup of tea here, ready for my crafting. So I hope you grab yourselves a cup of tea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend the shaded lilac over my project, and I'm masking off this area here just so that I don't get any on the top where it's open, just so that I've got it on the 3 open areas. And when it's inked, you'll be able to see that some areas, that area is thinner than that area. It makes no difference how you mask off the areas, just as long as you've got some masked off areas. What I've got now is I've got wilted violet, and just make sure that you ink up your tool with plenty of ink and just add some of that wilted violet wherever you want, whether you want it to the top or the base of your colours. So just think that up. And then I'm going to take the broken china, and you really don't need much ink for this at all. It's just a nice simple process. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is I've had a few requests from ladies who have said to me that they haven't got paints, they haven't got much product, and they want to know if I can create a card just with inks. And I'm always willing to oblige, no problem at all. So I'm doing exactly that, applying ink, and we're going to create the whole card with those inks, with those 3 ink colours. Now, the Distress Oxides are a pigment dye fusion, and with that pigment element, it means that we can layer the colours beautifully. They layer one on top of the other. If you've only got the Distress inks, you can use the Distress inks. With the Distress inks, you're using a translucent product, so you just need to be aware that obviously you can create mud if you layer the wrong colours. So what we've got is we've got those 2 there. We won't do the top at the moment. We're just going to stick with what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my Hibiscus stamp set, and we're going to use, let's just pick this up. We're going to use the border that we've got here, which is a beautiful stamp set. It stamps beautifully, and you could use it in the whole, as a whole piece or as a collage piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to use it to create collage elements within each of those areas. So I'm just going to ink my stamp up, and what I'm going to do is I can create different collage elements within each of those areas. So it doesn't have to be precise at all. It's just, you're just stamping some of that stamp into the area, and you're going straight over the removable tape. Now, what you have to remember, where it touches that removable tape, the ink will still be wet. The ink's still going to be wet anyway, because you're going on to the Oxide inks. So the ink's still going to be wet anyway. So it creates a beautiful collage. That's what we're creating. And it's great because you can build up a different collage. Just because this stamp set is in a lengthways configuration doesn't mean that you have to use it that way. You can use it in different ways. So you can create different looks each time. So what I'm going to do is stamp up this area again with the alphabet, and I'm just going to stamp a little bit on that area there. Just stamping a little bit on there. So what I can do now is I can keep that stamp set out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Through the Meadows stamp set. I love this stamp set. So just going to pull that out, hopefully without the plastic. And what we're going to use is we're going to use this stamp set here. Let me just move that out the way so you can just see that. We're going to use this stamp set here. And it's got lots of detail on that stamp set. So I can use different parts of it if I wish. So you can use whatever part you want. It's entirely up to you. So you can even use part of the wings just on the butterfly. So just add part of the wings on the butterfly like so. And again, I'm using the stamp as is. I'm not using the whole thing. I'm just using parts of the stamp. So just take your time and ink up different areas of that stamp set. And every time you do this, it's going to look different, because every time you ink up a different area of the stamp set. And that's the fun thing. The idea is that you're creating your own collage with collage stamps. Just because you're given collage stamps doesn't mean that you have to use them the exact way that they were designed. You can use them lots of different ways. However you see fit. You know, just have fun with your stamp sets. What you need to remember is that you're going to get in a little bit of mess with your stamp sets, because you're going to have ink all over your stamps. So don't worry about that. If you create a gap or anything like that, you can just add another collage element to the stamp set. So we're nicely covered there. So let me just grab an acrylic block, and what we need to do, there's a couple of things we need to do. First of all, you know, I don't know about you, but whenever I pull a wipe out of a packet, I either pull 10 out or I pull half of one. There's never a happy medium. So I've got half a wipe here. So I'm just wiping my fingers just to make sure they're nice and dry. And then I'm just going to grab an acrylic block. Or we're just going to chuck the acrylic block across the floor, which is really good. So what we're going to do is just wipe up that little bit of ink so that we don't get in a mess. And what we're going to do is grab another piece of scrap paper, and you're going to blot, just so that you don't get in a mess. You don't want to get in too much of a mess, because look how much ink comes off your low-tack tape. But look, you've created yourself your own washi tape. You could actually use that in your project. You could actually just put a butterfly on that, and you could use that as a project in itself. I just think there's so many ways that you can use these. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a dry. Just give the ink a dry, just to make sure that it's not going to smudge anymore. Just while I've given it a little dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some water in my hand and add some big blobs of water just to that oxide, just so it reacts a little bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to give it a few moments just to react. You just need to make sure you've got plenty of scrap paper. That's one thing you do need to make sure that you've got. And just blot that moisture up, just so that you've picked it up. And don't use that kitchen roll for anything else, because you don't want to get in a mess. So just give this a dry. And it always looks better when you've removed the masking tape. Until you remove the masking tape, you can't really tell. But it's important that you give that a good dry. And it's important that you use clean pieces of copier paper each time. So what I'm going to do is we're going to remove that low-tack tape, like so. And I'm just going to bin that. You can use the low-tack tape if you wish. I'm not. Just remove that. And I've just remembered, because I'm doing the card a second time, I haven't die cut my black circle, but we'll do that live anyway. That's not a problem. I can do that live. You don't mind, do you? Of course you don't. So we're just going to lift that up because we've still got that low-tack tape on the top of the card. So just lift that up, grab some kitchen roll, just so that we can dry underneath the card. We'll dry the reverse of the card eventually. And what you're going to do is grab yourself some more scrap paper. You're going to mask off the bottom where the masking tape isn't, and just going to mask off here as well. Okay, like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to apply your shaded lilac to the same areas like you did before, the shaded lilac, and this one tapers, this border does, that doesn't matter at all. You're then going to add some of your wilted violet, just a little bit of the wilted violet, like so. And you get a beautiful blend of colour with the oxides. Then you're going to add the broken china, add some of that broken china, okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our little stamp once again, that's the Hibiscus stamp set. We're going to use that stamp set, and we're just going to add little bits of detail just inside those open areas. So just pick a different area each time, just so it looks a little bit different each time you stamp into those open areas. And wherever you miss, don't panic, because you can always add a little bit more to the inside of the project. You can always add a few numbers or something else, no problem at all. So just adding a little bit more detail. There we go. A few more letters down here. And it's not until you actually finish the project that you realise how different it looks. So we'll just place this back. It doesn't sort of come together until you actually remove the tape and you actually bring all the other elements together. It doesn't actually sing until you do that. So we've got those copier paper pieces, and what we're going to do is we're going to just add some water like we did before. Just allow that water just to soak into the card a little bit before we blot. And then we're going to blot. Just blot that, like so. And then just give that a dry. So just take your time to give it a dry. And then what I'd do is I'd just grab a little bit more of the copier paper and just make sure that you blot again, just to make sure that you're going to remove any excess ink. Then we're going to remove the low-tack tape, like so, which I can't, that's it, I couldn't lift it up then. Just remove the low-tack tape. And then what you're going to do, just give it a dry from the reverse, just so that your card is straight. Just remove any ink from anywhere. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add the other elements. So we're just going to place that on one side for the moment, and then we're going to grab some more, she says, some more of the smooth Bristol smooth card. Whichever card you're using is absolutely fine. And what we're going to do this time is not chuck my stamp on the floor, is we're going to place the stamp onto our acrylic block, and then this time I want to ink the butterfly up, maybe a couple more of the details, just in case. You never know what you want to use. So just ink that up. And I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne Black ink. And I'm just going to press that ink on there. And I'm often asked, you know, why do we have to use VersaFine Clair for AALL&Create stamps? Well, it's no different really than if you're doing any kind of project. So if you were painting the walls in your lounge or dining room and you treated yourself to a good quality paint because you wanted the paint to last, then you don't want a brush that's going to leave all the hairs all over the wall. You buy as best quality you can of paintbrush to go with the paint. And I'm often asked, why can't we use archival inks? Well, with archival inks, beautiful ink pads, the thing is though, they're designed to dry quickly. So by the time you've inked this area up and you've patted like this with your archival ink, and then you move to this area, by the time you've inked this area up, this ink has already started to dry. So therefore you don't get a good impression. So the AALL&Create stamps are designed to be a little bit different. In other words, they've got lots of fine detail. Not all of them, some of them are simpler designs, but some of them, like mine, some of mine have got really fine details like these little pieces of cotton, etc. If you want something to pick up that fine detail, then you need an ink pad, which, just like VersaFine Clair, that's got a good open time, which means stays wetter longer and allows you to take your time to apply that ink without drying on the stamp and allowing you to get a good impression of that fine detail. And I think that describes why. I mean, you can see from this, just look at the detail, the fine detail of the cotton. So this is why we recommend, well, I recommend the VersaFine Clair. And if you read the back of the VersaFine Clair ink pad, it actually says it's a pigment ink pad, and it actually says that it picks up the fine detail. That's why it was designed. No different than if you were doing some gardening. When you do your gardening, like me, if I garden, then I buy the best tools I can possibly buy to do my work within that garden. Well, this is part of my work, is actually stamping. So if it means that I have to buy the VersaFine Clair to get that beautiful impression, because we're often asked for fine detail stamps, then that, for me, that is worth every penny. So different products are beautiful for different reasons and for different purposes, just as paintbrushes are put on the market for different purposes, the same as the VersaFine Clair and the AALL&Create stamp sets, to offer you variety as a stamper. And I've been a stamper for 25 years and I've always been an archival queen. Now, I'm totally a convert with the VersaFine Clair. I've got all the colours of the VersaFine Clair because they pick up that detail superbly. Now, they're not just designed for that fine detail, they're also designed for silhouette stamps, because again, you need to ink that silhouette stamp to get a good impression. You need to have a good layer of ink, and that's why the VersaFine Clair were designed. So I hope that answers some of the questions that I've been asked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blot that image, and I'm blotting it because it's on the Bristol Smooth. There's that many names I have to remember. Bristol Smooth, VersaFine. My mind goes, it's scrambled. So we've got that VersaFine Clair and it's been mopped up. We've blotted it. Now, during this conversation that I was having with a couple of these ladies, at first I thought they were friends because they both messaged about the same thing. They asked if I could just use the ink pads all the way through the card and not much else like pencils or anything like that. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So first of all, I've got my water brush. So let's just bring my water brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do wet on wet watercolouring. So I'm just applying water to my image. And that ink pad is a permanent ink pad, so I can do my water techniques. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply broken china, shaded lilac, crikey, I pressed that a bit hard, shaded lilac and wilted violet. There's too many names to remember. And I'm going to start with that shaded lilac. And because I've got that moisture already on the butterfly, wet on wet, it allows me to blend beautifully because I've already got that wet on wet, and you can add more water if you wish. So because I've got that wet on wet, I instantly get a good blend. I don't have to think about too much. So what I can do then is clean my brush and then go into the broken china. So go into the broken china and just drop that broken china. Now, there's nothing technical about this. Listen, Tracy has to find easy ways to do things. There's no point giving me complicated instructions, complicated written instructions, because I'm not very good with written instructions. I have to see it done, physically see a project done, because I'm not very good with physical instructions. I have to see it done. So, and it has to be easy for me. So what I'm doing is I'm just dropping on, and you can get some more water, and if you've got too much colour like we have there, just blot it. Just blot that colour. And then grab yourself some clean water, just spritz it out of the spritzer bottle, and you can just blend these colours just with a little bit of water. Go back to the broken china. And what's good about this wet on wet is that you don't get no lines. And you know what we're like, you know when we're using pens or anything, and it's all about not getting any lines. Well, you don't have to worry about this, because when you blot it down like this, when you tap it down onto the water, it bleeds out. And because it bleeds out, you don't get a line. And you look all professional. Even when I'm no good at colouring anyway, I just look the part. And that's what we want. We want to look the part without having 6 pages of instructions. And if I just lift this up, you can see that it's blending already without any lines. It's just lovely. A lovely way to colour. So I'm just dropping on that wilted violet just to give a bit more depth. Now, I don't want any more wilted violet, so wipe your brush. As you can see, I'm wiping it on here. Just wipe your brush, and then I'm going to pick up some more of that broken china. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that broken china, just so there's a little bit more blue. So I just want a little touch more blue, like so, and just pick up that and just add a little bit more blue, just to add to the intensity. Just keep adding layers. So let me show you. Can you see how it keeps bleeding out so that you don't get the lines? And don't you look like you're professional? We just look brilliant, don't we? Even though Tracy's useless at colouring, we just look good. So you can pick up a little bit and just dab it on, and it just blends. Look at that. Just wonderful. So what we're going to do now, have I got enough room? No, I haven't got enough room on there. So we're going to grab another piece of card. So let's grab another piece. I get through that much card. It's absolutely unbelievable. So let me just tear another piece of card. Well, I didn't tear that very well, but there you go. So I've got another piece of the Bristol Smooth here. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to remove this stamp set. Whoops. I'm flirting ink blending tools all over the place. Now, if you can allow that watercolour that you've just been doing, if you can allow it to dry naturally, that will work so much better. It'll work so much better because the intensity will stay there. And because the intensity will stay there, it just looks more vibrant and it makes your colouring look better. If you dry it with a heat tool, which Tracy has to do sometimes, because when you're doing a video, if you're recording a video, you always have to dry sometimes if you're trying to speed things up. If you're trying to speed things up, like I have to do during a video, then sometimes you've got no choice but to dry. But while we're stamping this one, we can be allowing that butterfly just to dry a little bit. So I'm stamping the Hibiscus, which is a gorgeous flower. I'm stamping that with Nocturne Black ink. Again, just allowing that ink to sit. Don't be quick to lift up the acrylic block because you're not giving time for that ink to absorb into the card. Now, I know sometimes I repeat, but I repeat because I still get asked to this day about these things. So I repeat some of the processes because every day I still get asked the same questions. So I think it's important that we keep reiterating that. So I'm just going to blot the hibiscus because it's on that Bristol Smooth. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the watercolouring again. So grab my kitchen roll, make sure that you wipe off the colour, squeeze some water out, and then apply water to your hibiscus. And look how technical this is. You're literally splodging that water onto your hibiscus. If you don't want to do that, just spritz your hibiscus with water. I just like to do this because I know that I've got plenty on them. So what I can do then is pick up my shaded lilac. Can you tell I'm struggling with names? All the names are rolling into one now. So I can pick up the shaded lilac and just apply the shaded lilac to my hibiscus. And look how technical it is. I'm literally scribbling it on. That's a technical term. So then what I'm going to do is make sure that my brush is clean, go into the blue, and then I'm going to add some of the blue. Again, very technical, just scribbling that on. Very technical term, just giving it a scribble. So I just want to add a little bit more of the blue. So just add that. Now you need a card that can take the moisture, because if it can't take the moisture, you're not going to be able to do anything. So what I can do now is I can go back to the shaded lilac, just add another layer of the shaded lilac. And if it gets too dark, use a little bit of water just to pull that colour out if it gets too dark. You can also dab with your kitchen roll just if it gets a little bit too dark. So what I want to do now is go into the wilted violet, and I'm just going to add a little bit of touch of wilted violet, and I can already see bleeding out because I've got moisture on the card. So I'm just adding some of that wilted violet, and it's just bleeding out just because I've got that moisture in the card. So what I'm going to do then, like you would with pens, I'm going to go back to the blue and add the blue because I want to add some more intensity of that blue and go over the lines of the wilted violet. So just like so. Just so you can see how we're creating that shading. So just a little bit more blue. And what we can do is we can let this dry, and then we can add another layer of colour if we wish. So it's entirely up to you. You can keep adding layers of the colour. And then if you're still struggling and you're thinking, well, it's not really blending, Tracy, you know, I don't think mine looks this good. If you feel like that, you know, I know what some of you are like sometimes, you're very self-critical. So if you're thinking, well, Tracy, mine isn't blending that much, spritz it with water because you're using oxides, and then just place it on one side to bleed. So let's bring in the butterfly so we can see how it's dried. Can you see how that's dried? You've got that shading. So what you can do then is you can go back in with your wilted violet, and you can just add a little bit more depth of colour with the wilted violet. Just pick up your water Now don't forget, if you haven't got a card that will take the moisture, you're wasting your time. You've got to have a card that can take that moisture. So just back into the blue, like so. So you can add another layer of the colour, just so that you can see that. You can see the moisture there, so you can see. So it's entirely up to you. So what I'm going to do is we'll just do another part while those two just rest a little bit. So what I want now is the hibiscus. So I want the hibiscus where I've got this little border stamp again, and I just want to ink that little butterfly once again. So let's just ink him. I'm going to see if I can get away with it without the acrylic block. Should really use the acrylic block, but let's see if we can get away. So we've just got the little butterfly. Yes, I've got away with that. So we've just got the little butterfly, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do now is just colour that butterfly again with some of the ink. Now, this is only a small butterfly, so to be fair, I only need to add a touch of the colours, just so that it looks a suggestion of the other project, of the other coloured in images, just so it's a mere suggestion. Now just look at the hibiscus. Look how beautiful that looks. I love it. I don't even need to do anything more with that. Right, what you can do then, let's just clean our brush. Grab it, a piece of card, any piece of card, and then what you're going to do with whatever ink is left here, just mop that up with a piece of card, because then you can die cut it, you can create a card with it. Don't waste it, mop it up, just so you create another background, and I'll show you the one I did before. So we've mopped all that up, and I'll place that on one side. So that's all mopped up, so I can just wipe the moisture. And let me show you the background that I did before, because I recorded it before. And this is what the background looks like when you just mop up those colours. So you're getting a 2 for 1. So just spritz it when you've mopped it up. Spritz it with water, and then you can create a second card. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this hibiscus out. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you cut yours out when moist. What I'd recommend is that you let the card dry completely and then cut your imagery out. Don't be in too much of a rush just to... Now my son's just running water. So just make sure that you cut that out when it's completely dry. Because if, like me, you cut it out when the card is very wet, you can be prone to tearing it. So you just need to be aware of that you can be prone to tearing. So just, I can't get my scissors in now. So just move your card around when you're cutting. I love this image. Just think this hibiscus is just gorgeous. I know I'm slightly biased, but I do think it's gorgeous. So I don't need to colour the stem and the leaves in because they will be covered up. So I don't need to do that anyway. So don't worry about those elements. Just actually colour your flower. The other is not necessary. So just cut down into the leaf, just so it looks a little bit more realistic. So my card is super wet, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. This is what happens when you do videos and you don't let anything dry. Again, I could dry with my heat tool, but the problem is when you dry with your heat tool, you force that colour down into the card. It doesn't sit on top of the card. You force it down into the card. And if you force it down into the card, these colours will actually become washed out, so it's not as vibrant. That's what I find anyway. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this little butterfly out, like so. I love the fact that in these stamp sets, there are small elements and big elements. So it means that I can create so much with them. I can create a collage if I want, or if I don't want to create a collage, I can just use the individual images as they are and create a clean and simple card. It's entirely up to you what you want to create. And I know some of you don't like fussy cutting, but I just think for this card, the little small elements really are worth it. There we go. Let's just move that. So we've got a little butterfly, like so. We've got the hibiscus, which is still very wet, but I would like it to dry naturally. I just think it'd be a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this butterfly just to go here, so we can stick our butterfly down. Let's do that now. So stick that butterfly down. So we'll place that here, like so. And then on this butterfly that we created, let me just, you can see that we've got this number here. Like so. Let's just use my little scissors. So we've got this little number here, which is on the stamp set. There we go. And then just cut that a little bit more because it's not straight. That's better. So what I'm going to do then is just add this to the top here, like so. Just don't turn that too much, Tracy. Okay. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the butterfly sentiment text that's on the Through the Meadows stamp set. So we've got this one, this butterfly text. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use VersaFine Clair Chianti just to ink that butterfly text up. And it does help if you put the butterfly text relatively straight on the acrylic block. It really is a good sign. I question myself then whether I'd inked it up properly. So I'm going to add that butterfly text here. And again, just allowing that ink just to sit and not race to lift it up. So you've got the butterfly text there, which is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is add my hibiscus, which is going to go here. So the hibiscus will go here. But before I do that, I need to cut out a black circle. So let's get my die cutting machine. Let's just get the die cutter. So I'm just using my small die cutting machine, my little Big Shot. And I'm just going to use these two circles. This is what happens when you have to record the video for a second time. Because I've got all this cut out beforehand. So I've got my card. Let's move the heat tool. Just turn this on an angle. just place those down. Now what you should do is tape them, but I'm not going to do that. So you should tape them, and then just run those through your die cutting machine. Let's move this out of the way. And then we should have a little frame, which I've just chucked on the floor. Let's lift that up, chuck that on the floor. I chuck a lot on the floor, so now I've got a frame. So let's just move these out the way. There we go, we've got that moved out the way. Let's bring in our card. So what we're going to do is I want to stick down, don't want to stick down the circle first. Yes, I do. I'm going to stick down the circle first. Just makes everything pop, that black circle. I think it's worth the added element personally. So just add that there. Then we add our hibiscus. If you want to give it a little bit more life, just bend and screw the flower a little bit, just so that it's got a little bit more life. So it doesn't look quite, you don't want it to look too false. So there we go, it's got a little bit of life in there. Let's place that down. Let's grab some copier paper, just to press that stem down. There we go, we've got that stem pressed down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try and not knock the camera, which is what Tracy frequently does. And then we're going to cut out this butterfly. But look at the colours. And you don't have to be super talented to do that. So just cut out the butterfly. Obviously, if you like your pencils and you like your alcohol markers, then you can use them, or you can even use your pencils on the top of the butterfly, on top of the Distress Oxide inks, to give it more depth. It's entirely up to you. I personally am quite happy with my butterfly the way it is. I'm quite pleased with it actually. Just cut that out. Like so. Got a lovely butterfly there. Very flimsy because it's very wet, but that'll harden off eventually when it dries. There we go. So what I want to do now is add some cotton. I love adding cotton for added texture. Plus it makes my projects look a little bit different, which is what I like. So just adding that cotton. Just mess that up a little bit. We don't want perfect cotton, do we? No, we don't. So just place that there, and just place a little bit of adhesive, just so that when you place the butterfly down, it grabs. So just adding the butterfly, like so. There we go. Just add that butterfly there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab a pen nib. I think I need to get some more pen nibs. I'm getting through them like wildfire. I've got a pen nib. I think these are the Tim Holtz ones, the Tim Holtz pen nibs. You don't have to add a pen nib. You can use my stamp set if you wish to add a pen nib as well, because I've got a stamp set with a pen nib on. Or you can use my stamp set with the pencils on and add pencils, or you can add a real pencil or part of a real paintbrush if you wish. What we're going to do now is just add some more details. What we're going to do is we're going to add some of this shaded lilac. You're going to spritz with water, and I will lift this up so you can see to pick this up, and you're going to add some splatters of the shaded lilac over your project, and you hardly need much ink at all. I will lift this up so that you can see it, just so that you can see those splatters. So that's with the shaded lilac. So what I want to do now is I want to add a few more little details. So we've got this little circle here. Just stamped from earlier, so I may as well use it. Why not? There we go. And then we're just going to add a little bit of that shaded lilac and broken china, so I'm hardly putting any on there. So just grab the shaded lilac, just add that, and my brush is really wet, which is fine. Just wipe off that colour and then go to the blue. To add some blue. And then just a little touch of the wilted violet. Just to add a little bit of the wilted violet. There we go. We don't need to add any more. Just leave that on one side for the moment, and then bring in our card, and we're going to stamp that butterfly sentiment once more with the Chianti, I love that, with the Chianti ink pad. Just allow that to sit on the card for a few moments. There we go. Lovely colour. I just have to remember to put the sentiments back, or else I know they go missing. So just cut this out. Move that out of the way. Make this a little bit smaller. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this here. Just building up my little collage. Just add that there, like so. Then I've got this circle which is still wet, but it'll dry in its own time. Just add that here. Just use my scissors. Like so. Because it's wet and I've got cotton underneath, it just takes a few minutes for that to grab hold. What we want to do then is we just want to add some more details. So I'm going to, let's just move this adhesive and the scissors just so that we've got some space. And what we're going to do is take our Inktense pencil, and we're just going to add the Inktense pencil all the way around the circle as far as you can go. And then you're going to add it across the lines, just where you can see the lines. Just add it across there. Just to give some shading. So just add it across and down here as well. just to add a little bit of shading where you can see the edges, just because it'll make it pop a little more. So just let's sprinkle some water, because this water brush doesn't work as well as the others. And then what we're going to do is we're going to blend that out just around the circle. So I'm going round the circle first just to add the shading. I will lift this up so you can see that shaded area. So you can see where I've shaded. Just add a little bit here. There's a bit. So wherever you've drawn those lines, just add a little bit of the shading. Just blending that out. So down the side here, down here, turning my card because it's just a little bit easier for me to add that shading. I find it a little bit easier. There we go, and it's not too much, but just let me bring that up just so that you can see the shading that we've added to the lines and to the circle. Let's just wipe that up. Then what I want to do is add some white splatters. Just take your time to add those white splatters, just so you've got it in a few of the areas. That's your white splatters. And then what we can do is we can add this to our card front. So what you want to do then is add it to your black layer. Let's hope that my pen nib is just stuck down okay, because it does take a few minutes for that to grab. So whoops, so just hold that in place so that you've got it right, and then just press and give it a few seconds just to grab hold that card, like so. Then we're going to add it to another layer. I always think the layering really does finish it off, just sort of makes it look more professional, like so. And what you can do is you can add an insert to your card. So you could add a little bit of the hibiscus, a little bit of the butterfly, whichever you wanted to do, just to add. You could even just add some splatters to the inside, just to make that the inside of your card. And if you wanted, you can even add a paper doll to your card, which is what I'm going to do here. The one I've photographed hasn't got a paper doll, but that doesn't matter. I can make them both look different if I want. And that is your card finished. So if I just bring that up, just so that you can see the shading all done with inks. Nothing complicated and not with loads of product. just done with inks and a little pencil done for shading. Here's the one I did before, just so that you can see that. And the only difference is that hasn't got a paper doll. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the process. If you actually make one, I'd love it if you tag me. If you tag me on Facebook or you join our group and add it to the group, that would be wonderful. I love seeing what you make, and I love seeing how you're inspired. So thanks very much everybody for your support, and thank you to those who've subscribed, and thank you for joining me. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.